Okay, today is June 5th, 2014, and we are interviewing Maurice Zurliene at Aveston Park. Mr. Zurliene was born on August 10th, 1948. My name is Cheryl Walker, and I'll be interviewing. Mr. Zurliene, could you state for the record what Warren Branch service you served in?
I was in the United States Army, and I served in Vietnam.
And what was your highest rank?
E5.
Okay. From this point, would you like to tell your story?
I can tell my story in many different ways. I was in recovery. In other words, I drove a M88 tank recovery vehicle. And that vehicle was the one that went out and got a lot of blowed up tanks, a lot of APCs, trucks, wreckers, anything that needed to be moved, they called us. And we'd be gone for months sometimes from our regular base camp, but we'd get around to other ones and run into a lot of different circumstances. Sometimes we took days to get things pulled out. Sometimes we didn't get everything all out. Sometimes things were blown in place by the demolition people. But the majority of the things that I went after, I got out. And we were exposed to a lot of different things. We were exposed to a lot of enemy fire, a lot of trying to get at us. We've had a lot of things stolen from us from the VC, and local people stole components from us, especially sea rations, sometimes our clothes, anything that we had, ammo. They take our, if we wasn't, they could get in there and do what they wanted so quick and so fast and so unnoticeable that we didn't notice it till it was over, because we were busy trying to get other people out of trouble. So that basically was about the way I spent almost all my days in Vietnam. Went up the Black Virgin Mountain, which was known as Mui Bao Den. Went up there a few times. Every time we'd get it cleaned off, it seemed like the mechanized infantry and the wolfhounds would decide it was time to go back up again. So we'd end up going back up there again and cleaning it off again, bringing everything back down, clearing the road, because in 1968 and 69, when I was in Vietnam, the United States owned the top of that mountain, and that was our radar area. But the Vietnamese owned the center, Viet Cong owned the center, and we owned the bottom. So in order to get to the top, to keep the roads cleared, we had to go through the Viet Cong. So it was a mess. And I was down in the rubber plantation, spent a lot of time in the hobo woods, moved around a lot from Da Nang south, past Saigon, back down again to Cu Chi, southern area of Vietnam. We was a kind of a gypsy group. We pretty well didn't take too many orders from a lot of people. We just, when they were in trouble, they called us, and we got called a lot because we were awful good at what we'd done. And I don't know how to say it, we just got around a lot, and sometimes that was good, sometimes it was bad. We ended up in an NCO club one night in Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base, and before it was all over, there was a big old ruckus, huge fight. Next day when we left town, there was a big old sign on the NCO club door, and it said off limits to all 25th Infantry personnel. So my warrant officer asked me if I knew anything about that. Well, I said, I probably know a little about it. And he said, yeah, I can just tell how much you know about it. So, but that's, you know, it was an experience that I'll never forget. There's guys here that can tell you stories a lot more than what I can. But I'm proud of my story. I'm proud of my service. And being the president of Vietnam Veterans Chapter 269 right here in Clinton County, and I might say I've been the president of it now for 10 years. So we have over 150 members. We are very active. We do a lot of things to help veterans, and we always looking for things that we can help do for other people. So that's basically. I'm also on the state council for Veterans Affairs. We help a lot of our men that join our organization. We make sure that they're taken care of by the VA, or they at least fill out their paperwork and apply for the benefits from the VA. Sometimes we take them, a lot of times we take them to St. Louis so they get a chance to see a service writer or a service advisor over there. And sometimes we have to do a lot of things to make sure that they get taken care of. But we get the job done. We got a lot of guys that volunteer. Nobody's selfish about anything. It's, I guess, like the Three Musketeers. One for all for one. But we're proud of every one of us are proud of being Vietnam veterans, and we're proud of what we accomplished since we come back. Because I know the Vietnam veterans are the people. National VVA was formed. When that was formed, they went to Congress and told the VA, said, look, you wrote this book about everything that you're going to do for the veteran. Now we're going to hold you to it. We're going to make you prove that this stuff that you got written down in this book is true. VVA hired lawyers. They hired, what do you call the people, lobbyists. We've had lobbyists up on the Hill, and we've accomplished a lot for the returning veterans of nowadays from Iraq and Afghanistan, Gulf War. We've done our part, and a lot of people that are in service today, when they recognize and realize that you're a Vietnam veteran, they'll tell us that it's because of you that we have what we got today. So that's part of our job. Anything else?
Let me ask you a few questions. First off, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I volunteered to be drafted. My time was going to be coming pretty shortly, so I went to my draft board and asked them about it, and they said, yeah, you're probably going to be going in about 3-4 months. And I said, well, if I'm definitely going, just sign me up. And I didn't know they was going to send me in 3 weeks, but I went. And that's how that ended up. So you could say I was drafted.
Where'd you take basic training at?
Fort Leonard Wood. I took basic training at Fort Leonard Wood. After basic, I stayed at Fort Leonard Wood to become a clerk typist. And I went to 4 weeks of school as a clerk typist there. And then on the 5th week, or at the end of the 4th week, they told us that the next 4 weeks were going to be on-the-job training. In other words, they were going to send us to companies who needed help with doing out morning reports and things like that, doing rosters, all that stuff. So the first place I got sent to, When I walked in the orderly room that day, the company clerk, our battalion clerk said, "Can you drive a Jeep?" And I said, "Yeah, it's got a steering wheel and a sticks. Sure, I can drive a Jeep. Why not?" So he said, the commander's driver got in trouble, or the battalion commander's driver got in trouble over the weekend. He's not going to be driving no more. So he said, we need somebody to drive him around today. That's okay. So I drove that battalion driver around, or that battalion commander around, and we hit it off pretty good, and for the next 4 weeks, that's what I did. I drove the battalion commander around in his Jeep, and he said, I'll tell you what, you're never going to have to worry about going to Vietnam now. He said, because I'm going to take care of you. Well, he took care of me. I went in on November the 8th of 67, 6 weeks before Christmas, and I was in Vietnam before Easter of 68 with no training, except 4 weeks as a clerk typist. And when I got to Vietnam, I got assigned to 25th Infantry. And then from there, from the reception station, they sent me to the 725th Maintenance Battalion. And in that maintenance battalion, they sent me to Charlie Company. And when I got to Charlie Company, I showed my orders to the company clerk. And he said, I don't know what we need another clerk for. I'm the company clerk, and we don't need another one. So I said, well, you can send me home. I wouldn't be mad about that. And they said, no, we'll find a different place for you. And about 2 days later, the warrant officer, Thomas Parker, who was in charge of the recovery vehicle, the 88 tank recovery vehicle, he said, he called me in the orderly room, and I went there, and he said, do you know anything? I was told you were a farmer. I said, well, yeah, I was raised on a farm. And he said, do you think you can drive an 88? And I said, my grandpa has an 88. No, he said, that's not what I'm thinking about. I thought he meant my 88 Oldsmobile, I didn't know what an 88 was, never seen one. So he said, he said, the driver we got now has burned up more engines, more transmissions, and got in more trouble than we could ever want to be in. He said, I got to find somebody who can drive this thing. He said, and they can't use you here for a clerk. So I went out there, and he gave me to the tank commander, the sergeant, and he said, show him how to run this thing and take him down, see if he can drive it. Well, after about 45 minutes, I came back, and the warrant officer, Thomas Parker, asked the sergeant, he said, what do you think? He said, he's better than Green ever was. And he said, you sure you never drove one of these? I said, I've never even seen one before. So for the next 12 months, that's what I did. I drove that 88, and I drove it all over. Like I said, I never had nobody ever had to pull me out. I always got out by myself. There was only a few things we couldn't get out, but that was beyond they were beyond getting out when we got there. So it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. Couldn't wait till the day I got home, left to go home, and when the day I left to go home, I cried like a baby because the people that I was with we were really close. So, and through the course of the years, I've only contacted one guy. So,
explain what an 88 is.
An M88A1 is a tank recovery vehicle. It is a vehicle that is used to pick up tanks, blowed up tanks, any kind of tank, and load on a flatbed or a lowboy or something, that's been destroyed or had been demobilized. And it was a huge piece of equipment. More power than I ever drove or been ever connected with. It was just one huge combat piece of equipment, and very versatile, and there was hardly nothing it couldn't do. It was a monster. It was the largest piece of mobile equipment there, anywhere. Still is to this day. And they revised it a lot, but back what we had in '68, it was a big piece of equipment.
Do they still use it?
Oh yeah, they still use it. Like I said, they revised it. They've done some improvements on it. Naturally now we have diesel engines. Back in them days, what we had was a 1,000 horsepower Continental gas engine. That's what the power was. So yeah, they've made a lot of moves, but the basic job, the basic function of it is still the same. It's a tank recovery vehicle.
Who makes it?
Ooh, it was made by the Army. You know, Continental at that time supplied the engines, and Allison supplied the transmission. Who knows who supplied the tracks and that, but yeah, it was a monster. Big piece of equipment. Never had to worry about anything. When I came back from Vietnam, they couldn't wait to get me in there. When I came back, I still had 6 months to serve, so they sent me out to Fort Ord, California for 6 months. And well, out there was a lot better because I was in the motor pool. Played baseball, which I was back in them days pretty darn good, and played softball, played a little football in the fall there. And first day I went out to California, they had a World War II Halftrack there. And I got there in about May. And when the battalion commander, when I had my interview with the battalion commander, he said to me, what do you know about half-tracks? And there again, I knew nothing about half-tracks because that was World War II. And we never had anything like that in Vietnam, because it's a truck in the front and it's a tank in the back. There's tracks on it. So he said, I got a little mess, I got a job for you, he said. Well, about a week later, he calls me into his office there again from the motor pool, and he said, you see that half-track out there in the front of my battalion headquarters? And I said, yes, sir, I see it. He said, it don't run. And he said, Monterey, California is having a huge 4th of July parade. I want you to take that back to the motor pool, get it running, paint it up, and be in that 4th of July parade. And we did. Took it back to the motor pool, found out why it wouldn't run, got it running, fixed up the things that we had to fix up on it, painted it up just the way it looked in World War II. The only thing we did was we fixed up, put a couple of places on the back where you could put flags. And that's the only thing we changed on it. We put mountings for flags on it, and I drove it in the 4th of July parade in Monterey, California. And he was proud as hell. Well, I done what I was told, so that's all that mattered. But I got to drive it. And then when I got out in November, I came home.
How long were you in Vietnam?
12 months. 12 months. It was good experience. It was one of them experiences you couldn't give me a dime to go back, but I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. Yeah, it's just that simple. I don't want to go. I just don't think I want to go back. Maybe 25, 30 years ago I would have. Basically because I wasn't as big and fat as I am right now, and I don't trust the 13, 14-hour flight that it is. You know, you gotta get up and walk around and that. So I know it's got nothing to do with this.
Did you get any R&R?
Oh yeah.
Where'd you go?
Australia. I went to Sydney, Australia. Great time. I enjoyed it there. Enjoyed it there a lot.
Did you only get one?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't want any more. Over there.
Which is which?
4-door to your right.
Did you take any pictures?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I don't know what happened to all of them. A lot of them didn't make it home. A lot of them were, they let you send a personal box home, but it's not really personal. They go through everything. And there were a few things in there that interest them more than I guess they thought more than what I wanted, so they kept it. But the way it was, really, when I got home, I really didn't.
Did you have anything as a good luck that you kept in your
Oh, you mean a little item or something?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had it's crazy, and I still have it to this day where my dog tags are on. I had I kept the very first day I was there, I put a P38 on it, and I went there with nail clippers in my possession, and I put that nail clippers on that ring. And you always had your dog tags. But when I got home, when I got out of service, I put my dog tags on that ring with that nail clippers and that P38, and they're still there. So I guess that was something you could say. I don't know. Everybody, yeah, you're right. I guess everybody had something.
Mm-hmm.
But
what about the food? What did you eat?
Mostly sea rations.
Was there anything you liked?
Beans and weenies, pound cake, yeah, the fruit cocktail, things like that, yeah.
Is there anything that you will not eat to this day?
For the
Because
longest time, it was rice. For the longest time. I still don't like white rice. I just can't get it into my head to eat white rice. I will eat rice now, fried rice, but I will.
Okay, if I smoke over here.
Don't bother me.
I know we're not out there.
Oh.
I didn't know.
But anyway,
Did you get your water?
well, I stole it off the truck when he was here.
Okay, never mind.
I still don't eat white rice, no.
do you recall the day that your service ended?
Yeah. My service ended on November the 7th of 1969. I was in Fort Ord, California, and I was, back in that time, they called it mustered out. That's where I left there. I left from there.
Was there a group of you?
No. Just me and another guy who got out like 2 days later. And he was from Ohio, so we got together and I said, I'll pay half the gas. He had a car. I said, I'll pay half the gas and we'll go together. When we stay in a hotel, we'll split it, this and that. About 2 days, we was home. I was home. Then he stayed at my place for about 3 days. Then he went on. So, ain't seen him since neither. Ain't heard from him or nothing. But he seemed to like where he was at, where he liked it out here, because we kind of had a farm surroundings, and he really thought that was great. So I really did expect to see him come back, but he never did. But that was, yeah.
What did you do after your service ended?
Before I went in, I was working at a packing company, meat packing company in East St. Louis. So when I came back, I went back to work there because all my seniority and everything went right along. So I got my job back, but it only lasted a short time. I couldn't stand being cooped up. I couldn't stand loud noises. To this day, I can't stand loud southern noises, sudden noises. I can't. I jump at the sight of rifle shots and everything. I still jump. I just could not work in that environment. So my uncle come to me and asked me if I would be interested in partnering up with him in a truck route. We bought our own truck, and we hauled meat. So we did that for probably 2 years, I guess it was, something like that, maybe 2.5, 3 years. And then there were some problems with the company we was working for, and another guy said he'd like to have our truck, so we sold it to him. And I went to work for another trucking company down in St. Louis, Illinois, Billman Truck Company, and I worked there for the rest of the time. 40 years, almost 40 years there. And I retired in 2010. So once I got to be 62, I could retire, and they were getting real stickly. The Department of Transportation was getting real about diabetes, insulin, the use of insulin, and I was about ready. They wanted me to get on insulin, so I couldn't. And if you got back in them days, if you got on it, you couldn't drive. So I ran it till I was 62, and then I got on it. And one shortly after that, they started putting insulin, put me on insulin, and one of the reasons why I drove a truck was I realized very, very early that I didn't really play well with a lot of other people. When I was better by myself than I was, and driving a truck was the ideal job for me because there was nobody in there with me, and I won 99% of my arguments with the right seat. He just didn't have a chance. But yeah, it was a perfect job for me. I was good at that. I don't know how many millions of miles I got without accidents or anything. So it's probably 4 to 5 million miles. And I don't know, just good living, good company to work for. I really had no reason to leave, so I just stayed there. And they still treat me good. So it's the way I roll.
Do you belong to any other veterans organizations?
American Legion, 44 years.
How has your service and experience affected your life?
A lot. PTSD I never knew I had till my wife and my kids told me that they said, "Dad, there's something wrong with you. We don't know, you're nuts, you're crazy, or there's something wrong with you. You gotta get some help." And I went to the VA and I went to seek help. Ended up in a psychiatry, And it didn't take long. The first psychiatrist I seen told me that you definitely have PTSD. So they started treating me, and I've been treated ever since. I have no complaints whatsoever about the Veterans VA. I wish they never fired Eric Sininsky, or he would have never resigned. I think he was the only one that did know what was going on. Now they're going to start all over, and they're going to mess everything up. And the Vietnam veterans are going to be put on the back burner again, just like we were in the Gulf War, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and now we're on the back burner again. I don't have nothing against any of those people. They deserve everything they can get. I just have a hard time accepting the fact that it's at the expense of the Vietnam veteran. It shouldn't be that way. It should not be. What else?
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh, not really. I should mention the fact that I did get married on November the 20th of 1970, and Karen and I are going to we're going to be married 44 years this November. We have 2 boys. They're both married. We have one son that has 2 sets of twins, and the other son has 2 boys. So, other than that, no dogs, no cats.
Did you know her when you were in Vietnam?
I went to school with her. I went to school with my wife through grade school and high school. And I'm from Albers, and so was she. But you know, we were classmates, and that's about the extent of it. I was never somebody who really just stood around. Being on the farm, there was a lot of things that you did when you didn't get to do what a lot of other people did. And so, with that in mind, you missed out on a lot of things. And later in life, I didn't let that happen to me. I wanted to be part of all of it. And I met my wife, really met her after I was totally out of service and everything. So that was it. That's the way it's been.
Well, at this time, I would like to thank you for your time that you gave to our country. And I would also like to thank you for the time that you gave today with the interview. And I would like to thank you for allowing me to be the one that interviewed you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.